I was one of you last year, and I did not win. So look what happens when you don't win. Some hand reaches out, plucks you out of your seat, and says, "Come with me to a foreign land." Anyhow, here I am. Lovely to be with all of you. And this this was started by Aziz Rahman. I don't know how many of you know him. Um, it was established, I think, in 2011 to bring a broad range of Brooklyn non-fiction essays about each author's real experiences in Brooklyn. And one of the larger goals of the Brooklyn Nonfiction Prize project is to present the personal reminiscences of of hundreds of Brooklynites drawn from various parts of Brooklyn to ultimately constitute a cultural history of the world's greatest borough. Um, your stories provide deep insights and constitute unique fragments of Brooklyn's vast and fascinating social and cultural history. And by presenting this gathering of Brooklyn authors for this annual finale program, we create, even for a brief moment, a co-joined Brooklyn community of Brooklyn writers whose sharing of their personal Brooklyn stories advances our collective knowledge, appreciation, and understanding of each other's lives in Brooklyn. Um, so we're going to begin. There is a batting order, and I know absolutely nothing except that I am the host. So I've no idea who is, the winner or will be the winner or however that's done. But there is a batting order that I have also nothing to do with. There may be some weird secret to what the order is, but I don't know. Do you know the order? I don't even know if that was given out. No. Okay. Well, we are going to hear first from Linda Scotto and the lesson. Linda, are you available?
I am.
So will you read to us, please?
Absolutely. Today, she will teach us a lesson, Bella. She is always teaching us lessons. The problem with this is either the lesson is something we already know or don't want to. Today, she's entered my bedroom and stands arms akimbo, feet spread shoulder distance apart, stockings gathered at her ankle. She waits until I look up. Because she is short, and I mean short as in dwarf like short, I can see standing behind her with an expression of dread my mother, chomping on her cuticles. This lesson, I can see, might be a difficult one. I have questions about what is going to go on, but Bella is impatient to begin. She stomps her foot hard, hard enough to shake and vibrate the trinkets on my plywood dresser. I hear all the bric-a-brac that makes up my 8-year-old life instantly clatter together. Come on, she bellows. Today you're going to learn what a whore is. We walk down, sorry. We walk down the stairs of our 6-story apartment building silently. My mother slouches along a half staircase behind us. I turn to look at her several times just to make sure I will not have to take this lesson in by myself. I keep turning every few steps for fear she will disappear until my grandmother pokes my arm hard with her finger. Watch where you're walking. My grandfather Augie is already waiting outside behind the wheel of the car. He's wearing a bright yellow straw hat with a big floral brim, and he's drinking a Rheingold. I know that hat. I've spent hours in it, dawdling in front of the mirror, vamping it up, doing some of my best Marilyn Monroe's until Bella comes in and screams, "Get my goddamn hat off, you hear?" How come Augie can wear it, I want to ask. But before I can say a word, we are seated inside, and his foot presses on the pedal hard. Our heads jerk back in unison. I look over at my mother, who seems neither annoyed nor interested. Today, my grandmother repeats, in case it has slipped our minds by the time we've gotten down the stairs, I'm going to teach you what a whore is. And she smiles. When she smiles, I see them, her teeth with all the ugly dark gaps between them. She has told me it's from the bad water in Italy. Even though I've never been to Italy, I still dream I will wake up with those teeth. Sometimes the kids on the block make fun of her. Sometimes before I go outside to play, she stops me and I know what she's going to say. Don't tell those goddamn kids out there I got brown teeth, you hear? I want to tell her they already know. But she hears them. She hears them by the window when she calls me for dinner. Go on and eat brown food's teeth. Sometimes in a rare moment when she giggles, not the forced laugh she has with the mailman or the grocery clerk, but the one that slips out on its own. She covers her mouth quickly and bows her head in shame, as if a real laugh will show more of their ugliness. Augie is drunk and his driving is not very good anyway. Drivers on the road are giving us the horn. Fucking watch out, old man. I hear someone shout from a passing car. I turn to look at my mother, but she's too busy looking out the window. Sometimes she turns her head around completely as if we've passed someone she can't believe she's recognized. But Augie's foot is heavy on the gas and won't allow her eyes to linger long. Your sister should be here too, Bella sneers. Even though I have not been directly addressed, I know she's talking to me because I'm the only one in the car with the sister. Turn here, pull up. My grandmother spits the orders out tersely. Augie obliges wordlessly, planting both right tires on the curb in an effortless park. I look around and immediately recognize the area. It's Kings Highway, one of the most crowded shopping areas in Brooklyn. Dozens mingle in the street. They pop into and out of stores, wait for buses, some with dozens of bags in tow on a definite mission, others strolling a lazy Saturday morning daze. Bella and I step out of the car, but my mother is still looking out the window. Get out of the car, Carol. How come Grandpa Augie doesn't have to know what a whore is? Your Grandpa Augie has known many whores already, my grandmother snickers. Bella positions herself on the corner, my mother and I beside her. We wait for what seems like hours. From where we stand, I watch the sea of heads that seem to float up the avenue. The August sun is merciless and creates a dreamlike, transparent wave over everything. A baseball game blares from Augie's radio. Once in a while, he sucks down a beer in what looks like one swallow, then throws the empty can directly over his shoulder. My grandmother checks her Timex every few minutes. Then, as if on cue, points toward the dime savings bank. It should be right about now. Then I see her, a small woman almost as short as Bella, in a white house dress. In one hand, she holds a paper of some sort, and with the other makes what appears to be an unconscious rubbing motion across her chest. She stops at the curb, then drops her arms to the side and looks up in an attempt to cross the street. And now I can see it's my godmother. My grandmother takes a step back. She arches her back, juts her belly into the air, then cups her hand in front of her mouth in what seems to be a makeshift bullhorn. Whore, she screams. The word pronounced by my grandmother as who are imperfect Brooklyn speak and emitted loud enough to pierce the soul. Several people stop instantly. They look to us, then among themselves, as if to make sure the trollop referred to is not among their own party. Hey, everybody, there's a whore on King's Highway, my grandmother continues. At first, I think Julie will not recognize us, but then I follow her eyes from my grandmother to my mother and then to myself, and I want to die. That's about 1,000 words.
Oh, muzzle tov.
Thank you.
Lovely. And lovely to hear you quote the great English writer Trollope. So we're going to move to the next. Do you all have this batting order? I think you may have gotten it. So Maria Odessky Rosen.
Yes, hello there.
There you are, from Moscow or the Ukraine.
That's right.
So here you go.
Okay.
Welcome.
This essay is called Brighton Beach Daydreams. The pure synthetic tones of deep forest are not pure at all in this apartment on the 13th floor of a building in the Trump Village projects. The music is polluted, and so are my thoughts. Martha's song gets distorted in the cacophony of a passing Q train. As I put in the earplugs and raise the volume, I lose the feeling that this particular song gives me. I also remember to lower the volume after the train leaves because Papa is sleeping. Papa is always sleeping. Papa and Mama moved back to Brighton Beach when I left for college. They entered the lottery for these Trump-built, rent-controlled co-ops years before, and finally their number came up. The choice was between this tiny one-bedroom and an even smaller studio. The rent is cheap, and since Mama can't work anymore, this is what SSI buys. There was never going to be a room for me. When I left for college, I was on my own. Mama doesn't want me to become a writer. This is not why we sacrificed and left everyone behind, she reminds me. Writing is not practical. Dreams are not for immigrants. Dreams are for people who can afford to have them. Immigrants must be practical. I am not practical, I want to tell her. I don't want to do anything else but write. Mama, if I can't write, I try to imagine that I'm someplace else, but it's impossible to daydream with car alarms going off. Searching for serenity is a hopeless pursuit in this apartment. All the New York elements are working against me. Coherent thoughts stay long enough for me to sense them and then dissipate in the passing of another Q train. Sometimes I jam earplugs in my ears to get away from my own thoughts. It's amazing how one moment you think you have found the perfect set of words to describe your feelings, but as you grab your writing tools, they're gone. Kind of like when you're getting ready to sneeze, but you don't, so you never feel the relief. Papa wants to know if I heard that Tatiana is the last local supper club still open. There were at least 10 Russian supper clubs in Brighton Beach when we first moved here from Moscow. Papa wants me to tell all my friends about Tatiana so it never goes out of business like all the others. He says Americans don't know how to party. They go to a restaurant and gorge themselves until they're sleepy. Where's the show? The dancing, the vodka. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Papa, I whisper as I grab my old school notebook and march down to the boardwalk under the elevated train line past the Skavarodka restaurant. Not like Tatiana, but still better than any American restaurant, I imagine Papa saying. I head straight for the rocks that break the waves. Someone is always fishing or sunbathing at Brighton Beach. Temperature is irrelevant. And this is a particularly warm October day, which has brought out so many people. As I lower myself on the least populated island of rocks, I meet the gaze of a fisherman stationed a couple of feet in front of me. His eyes follow me as I take out my journal and pen. I give him a quick nod. He smiles and turns back to his fishing, forgetting me only momentarily because he continuously turns, casting quizzical looks at my notepad. Probably thinks that I am an artist. Lots of budding artists come here to develop their talents. Poor old bastard, if he only knew that I'm just a writer. He turns around again and smiles a big toothless grin. Look, I want to say, save it, I'm not drawing you. All of a sudden, I see my mother staring at me over his shoulder. What are you doing? Get up. You know you can't sit on damp rocks. Do you want to give your ovaries a cold? Even though I know that you can't give your ovaries a cold, I think, I get up anyway. I can't write with Captain Ahab and my mother peering at me. Moving to a bench on the boardwalk will be more helpful for my writing and healthier for my ovaries, just in case Mama is right. I came to the beach to be alone, to think, but you can never be alone at Brighton Beach. I return to the boardwalk, grab the first empty bench I see, and look around. There are people sitting on the benches to my right and to my left. Families with strollers are meandering behind me. A walker approaches and stares. Maybe he too thinks that I am an artist and wants to peek at my creation. I am not an artist, I want to scream to the world. I look back at the ocean. It beckons me. I oblige, remove my shoes and trudge onto the sand. It feels cold and silky. I head for the water. I step in and am stabbed by millions of freezing needles. The pain makes me gasp. Although the water is frigid, my body feels like it is on fire. It feels good. I take another step into the ocean, as though somewhere in that great depth is my panacea, my daydream come true. My feet go numb. I look at my two white stumps sinking into the sand and wonder if I will be swallowed whole if I stand here long enough. I imagine the tenacious beachcombers scouring the sand with their huge headphones and metal devices, searching for long lost hidden treasures, looking like curious astronauts looking for evidence of life on other planets. Their detectors will go crazy over the spot where I will have sunk under their feet. They will find my Hamsa ring, by then dislodged from my bony finger. Will they find me under the waters of Brighton Beach? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tatiana. Hello, Tatiana. I think I was there for a bar mitzvah celebration. Yes?
So good.
Right? Yeah. Thank you very much, Maria. We now move to Julia. Would you pronounce your last name? Because I'm likely to do it with a German accent.
Accent, German accent would be fine. Lichtblau is my last name.
Lichtblau. Yeah,
Yep.
genau. Okay, hello.
All right. Hello, everybody. My essay is entitled "The Value of an English Garden in Brooklyn." Robin, you'll be able to relate to that. It was originally published in The Common, which is a literary magazine. I opened the garden on the morning of November 4th, after 16 hours of poll work, the day before, sure Trump will be reelected. The lawn is scattered with red and yellow leaves. The late roses are wan and bedraggled as chiffon ball gowns after a hard night of dancing. Shocking purple aconitum are the finale, their hood-shaped blossoms, hence their popular name, monkshood, visible from 50 feet away. The twisted apricot tree is filled with warblers. This English garden in Brooklyn makes a classy pit stop on their way to Guatemala. A young couple, seeing the chain-link gate ajar, peers in. "You're welcome," I say. They enter, reverent, cautious. "Is it yours?" I recount the story, which is posted on the gate, but people like to have it told to them. Christopher Adlington, an Englishman, created and cultivated the garden for 50 years. He died in June 2015 at 77, and soon after, Nathaniel Lamar, his partner and the gardener's owner, became bedridden. A group of us has come together to tend his garden. Anyone can join, just show up. We talk about the election. "I'm not as emotional as she is," he says, tipping his chin toward his girlfriend, "but it's hard. She says nature has kept her sane." "How lucky that you were here when we walked by," they say. When the pandemic hit last spring, I felt like Marie Antoinette playing shepherdess. There is no sacrifice or bravery in growing and writing about flowers. Now I think, so what? The garden needed us and we needed it. Sadie, Carrie, Courtney, Matt, Debbie, Leah, Mira, Rachel, and I, plus irregulars, including children. We weed, plant, prune, mow, fertilize, Fridays and Sundays. We have our jokes. When Matt laid a path with stones dug up or found lying around, "We talked in caveman voices for an afternoon." After Biden's victory, we dubbed the dead rat found on the premises Trumpy. Then there are the angels. Chet dropped off a check I thought was for $100 until I deposited it and saw another zero. Larry left a check in my mailbox and put a wad of cash in my hand. Pam slipped an orange parking ticket envelope with cash in the shed. Hillary sent staff from her gardening business and left us a ladder and a tree pruner. Everyone calls it the secret garden, after the 1911 Frances Hodgson Burnett novel about a sour little English girl named Mary, orphaned by cholera in India, who discovers a locked, walled, overgrown garden on her uncle's Yorkshire estate. For decades, Christopher came and went through a barely visible wooden gate behind his and Nat's row house around the corner. He gardened almost every day, never left a trace of debris, and never, almost never, let anyone inside. The chain-link gate onto Gross Street was opened so rarely that a fern grew just outside the arc it traced in the dirt. I live in the Gothic Revival church turned condo next door, the garden's scenic backdrop. After Christopher's death, I found myself taking on his garden. I couldn't stand to let all his work go to waste. My own garden is small, but I've spent countless hours on it over 19 years. Brooklyn has 36,732 people per square mile, the second most populous county in America. Every inch of green is precious. There are so many definitions of an English garden that one frustrated authority boiled them down to this: a garden that looks like it belongs in the British Isles. Excuse my accent. Our English garden consists of 3 low rising tiers outlined in brick and stone and a sunken garden. In front, a long, narrow lawn framed by cascading bushes and flower beds, the stone bench presiding from the far end. Second tier, a weeping cherry, the garden's centerpiece, the 2 espalier apples and boxwoods. Third tier, a small square lawn, the vegetable patch, an apricot tree, and invisible from the street, a cracked retaining wall, and the sunken shade garden. I like to think of the retaining wall as a ha-ha, that wall drop in a sloping lawn invisible from the manor, designed to keep the game out of the flowers, and so named because that's what you say when you nearly fall over it. The ha-ha was a favorite feature of Lancelot Capability Brown, who, along with other less memorably named 18th century English gardeners, transformed the formal garden from a French geometric contrivance to nature perfected à l'anglaise through effusive plantings, architectural follies, orchestrated vistas, and man-made geography such as serpentine lakes. Our garden is a miniature Sands Lake. It takes up 2,750 square feet, a standard row house lot, plus a dogleg enclosing the oak, which thrusts out of a mysterious mound in the northwest corner of the sunken garden. Based on its 11-foot circumference, the oak is 254 years old. South Brooklyn was farmland when the progenitor acorn sprouted near the base of the 120-foot Bergen Hill, a glacial moraine. In 1846, when men began carting off the top half of the hill to fill in nearby Red Hook for a port, the tree was 80 years old. They dug around it. Tax photos from 1933 show a tall frame house with a Dutch gambrel roof gone by 1940. The lot was a junkyard when Nat bought it in 1970 for a few $1,000s. Today, it's the only unbuilt private land in Cobble Hill, where brownstones go for north of $6 million. Nat, raised in Atlanta, attended Phillips Exeter in New Hampshire and was perhaps one of 2 Black men in Harvard's class of 1955. Nat's story, Creole Love Song, was published in The Atlantic when he was 22. He won a prestigious Henry Fellowship to study at Cambridge, where he befriended Sylvia Plath. Christopher came to New York as a young man for a short stay after training as an accountant in England, and he never left. The garden was his life's work. We moved into the church in March 2001 and saw Christopher almost daily on his ladder, clipping the tall euonymus Fortunae hedge that separated our properties. But it took a good decade to fully break the ice. He yelled at me when my son threw a ball into his hedge. "Were you ever a child, Christopher?" I yelled back. Later, my husband and I encountered the couple at a neighbor's house, where Nat and I bonded over Henry James. Properly introduced, we became friends.
Lovely. Thank you. So nice to hear Capability Brown in this August.
I knew you'd appreciate it.
Lovely. You were a poll worker whereabouts?
At the Dodge YMCA. I think that year I might have been at the project in Gowanus.
Oh, I was a poll worker around the corner from me in Park Slope.
Ah, okay.
Okay, and now our lovely Proxy reader, who is here on behalf of John McMahon, who's unfortunately in Thailand. So, Algis, would you read to us, please?
Yes, and thanks for calling me lovely, by the way. It's very nice. This is an excerpt from 547 Lorimer. It's the name of the piece by John McMahon. Mm-hmm.
I have the wrong number.
Oh, well, this is what he just told me earlier today. So
okay, it says 575 here, but for you, 547.
I have 540. He just told me 547. So the piece is changing its name. All right. My building was one of those old, clapboard 2 families split into 6 apartments. The neighborhood's remnants were mostly aging second and third generation Italians, like my upstairs neighbors, Judy and Sal. They had lived in the building since they were married at the church around the corner, decades earlier. Sal was a bantamweight, a postman who walked a local route until he was forced to retire in his 70s, but continued to walk it for years afterwards, just to keep his eye on things. Judy, on the other hand, had the typical physique of an Italian grandmother, twice Sal's size, and was forever in a house dress, with a kerchief over her hair. She spent much of her adult life sitting at an open window, leaning on a pillow, with a cigarette in her mouth, righting the wrongs of the neighborhood with the other housewives between fixing meals. She and Sal had raised 2 girls in the cramped apartment. Both were grown and rarely came around when I was living there. Judy never came downstairs if she could help it, communicating between floors with a well-practiced yell. Sal seemed to be always standing around the vestibule, waiting for the mail, which he would sort out for the 6 apartments and deliver to our doors, hoping to catch someone in conversation. Then I stopped seeing Sal around. The mail didn't get sorted, and no one was monitoring the slamming of the street door, which drove Judy crazy. She'd yell down, "Stop slamming that goddamn door!" Judy had the mouth of a longshoreman. Sal was down, seriously ill, bedridden. Judy started to ask me for small favors now that they were both shut-ins. She needed things from the shops. There were envelopes to mail, food for the cats, medicine for Sal, cartons of cigarettes for herself. She smoked like a diesel in the apartment, despite Sal's illness. On a cool autumn morning, Judy asked if I could get my barber to come up and cut Sal's hair. "He always had pride in his uniform and his hair," she said. It was a tough ask, but the shop wasn't far. Model barbers had occupied the corner of Metropolitan and Union for over 60 years. A two-chair operation with an ancient flecked mirror running nearly the length of one wall. Everything in the place was old. The waiting chairs, the standalone ashtrays, the jumble of Sports Illustrated and Playboy magazines, decades out of date. The men who sat in the corner, playing cards and smoking, were ancient themselves. I was on friendly terms with my barber since I passed the shop twice a day between home and work, always exchanging a nod or a quick chat if he was lounging in the open doorway watching the action of the intersection. Sam, short for Samir, was from Syria, another early gentrifier. He'd done it right, though, working the second chair for a few years before buying the shop outright, earning the locals' respect and their last years of business. Sam greeted me, then his face sank as I made the request. He told me I had come at him like the grandfather with the pumpkin, apparently a folktale from his homeland. We struck a deal. I'd redo the doors, thick with generations of paint, if he'd come around and take care of Sal. He packed a bag with his shaving kit, scissors, and combs, glaring at me and muttering curses in Syrian under his breath. Sal and Judy's apartment was the mirror image of mine before I renovated. The worn vinyl flooring and low arches between rooms made the place feel closed in, muggy, shut out against the cold autumn wind. I wouldn't have called it a mess, but it was neither neat, and it smelled distinctly of old age and death. Judy was at the kitchen table, smoking, when we arrived. Sal lay motionless in the double bed, in the back room they must have shared for 50 years, under a heap of blankets. His eyes were shut. His face was wan. He was absolutely still, his skin like chalk. Sam announced through his clenched teeth, "This man is dead," and walked straight out of the apartment without another word. Judy barely looked up from the mound of cigarettes in her ashtray, pretending not to hear. I told her he had passed. "Well," she said, "maybe you could just clean him up a little?" Not that Judy was indifferent, just in denial. I told her we shouldn't touch him and had to call 911. Still, she talked me into carrying him downstairs, wrapped in a blanket. She didn't want to be in the room with a corpse. He was simply bones under the blanket, and I felt none of Sal's energy in the body. It was just a husk. After the mourning period, my girlfriend and I took Judy to dinner. Not at the diner or Planty Thai or any of the new cool places, but at a neighborhood legend called Bamonte's on Frost Street, a place Judy thought of as real fancy. A place frozen in time when big men still parked cars for Cadillacs, and every half-celebrity who'd ever eaten there was memorialized in the tiny front bar. It was old-school Italian-American, family style. The dining room was all red velvet and gold brocade. She told stories of the neighborhood past, greeting old acquaintances with loving kisses, then tearing them down as soon as they were out of earshot, dishing dirt that went back 30 years, in language that had us in hysterics. Judy may have been the only person I ever met who spoke with that Bugs Bunny Brooklyn accent. Judy Ann Sal had been in that building since 1964. The good old days, she would always say, before the BQE split the neighborhood up. Sally was too damn cheap to get us out of here when he could have, she told me in confidence after he had passed. In the end, she got out, and so did I, just when everyone else was trying to get in.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay. For 575 or 540, whatever, Lorimer. We're now going to Diane Morelli and my 4th birthday. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Jolly good show. Hit us with your rhythm stick.
My 4th birthday. A snowstorm that varied in intensity. An Ebinger's blackout cake decorated with pink heart candy roses. 2 things this girl, born in Brooklyn, New York in the 1960s, got on her birthday every year. My 4th birthday, one of my earliest memories. A recap of that day plays on my mind. Every year, on my birthday when I awaken, head sunk into the pillow, eyes still closed, the experience of long ago, vivid as ever, and just as unsettling as it was when I was 4. I lived with my parents, an older brother, in a 2nd-story apartment above a butcher shop on Avenue J. The building was attached on 2 sides. Even with the Venetian blinds open and the sheer white curtain panels pulled back, almost no sunshine came through. That February morning, I stretched out on the living room floor. Scruffy beige carpeting scratched my wrist as I rubbed a green crayon across a forest scene in my coloring book, humming a birthday ditty to cut the silence, squinting to tell blue from black Crayolas apart in the pale gray daylight. My brother slipped into the room. He was 6. For the most part, he obeyed Mom and Dad when they warned him to be nice to me. They drilled it into him to never hit me because he was a boy and I was a girl and he could really hurt me. He kicked my artwork out from under me, said, look out the window. We raced to get there. It was as bleak and shadowy outside as it was inside. The screens were coated in ice and rattled from the high winds. The snow fell fast. Huge flakes hung together like paper doll angels dancing hand in hand. My mother walked up behind us, returned. She was wearing a rain hat, scarf, gloves, long coat, and rubber boots. My brother and I were still in our pajamas. He said, "Don't build a snowman without us. We can get dressed quick. Be downstairs in a minute, Ma." "You two aren't going anywhere today." "It's my birthday, and I get to do what I want, and I want to play in the snow," I blurted out in one breath. "You can't go outside. We're having a blizzard. It's freezing and wet. The snow's too deep to walk through." My brother was curious, asked Mom, "Where are you going without us?" I felt swirling and wriggling deep in my stomach. The only time Mom left us at home was when my father or her sister babysat. Dad was at work in the city now, and my aunt was in her own house nearby on East 42nd Street. Mom talked to my brother as if I were no longer in the room. My ears swished like they did when I had a stuffy nose and refused to blow it. My mother's voice puffed. My mother's voice was muffled, sounding like it came from far away. "I'm going to Ebinger's to pick up Diane's birthday cake. Sit with her at the window. Don't move from that spot. Don't let her go anywhere either. Do not pick up the telephone if it rings and do not answer the doorbell." She placed 2 chairs by the window. Out she went. The 2 of us sat side by side, staring downwards in the direction our mother walked to run her errand. For a change, my brother was quiet. No teasing, no hair pulling, speechless. Like me, he may have been too scared to talk or too busy thinking. What would happen if Mom left with no intention of coming back? I was afraid of that. I pretended it was nighttime, pictured myself opening presents and playing with new toys. Daydreaming pushed all frightening thoughts out of my head. While I indulged in happy musing, my brother misbehaved by getting out of his chair. Once standing, he pressed his hands against the pane. Starting at eye level, he slid them up the glass until they were well above his head. Before he plopped back into his seat, he placed his cold, drenched hands on my flushed cheeks. A chill shot through me, destroying my sense of peace. My brother finally spoke. You know, today isn't your real birthday. No one knows the actual day you were born. Could have been in the winter, could have been in the summer. It was some time after you were left on our doorstep. That's how we got you. And that's why I'm sure you're not part of this family. You're stupid, I said. I may be stupid. At least I'm not adopted. I'm not adopted. Of course you are. You know how I know you're adopted? I was the one who found you, curled up in a blanket. I made Mommy close her magazine to take a good look at you. I begged her to bring you inside and keep you, even though you were ugly. I wasn't ugly. Mommy and Daddy said I've always been a beautiful girl. A girl? A girl, he laughed. Is that what you think you are? That's something that definitely is not true. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. If I'm not a girl, what am I? He paused, moved closer toward me. Mommy told me I'm not supposed to tell you. Now that you're 4, you're old enough to know. Know what? The truth, he said. What's the truth? The day I found you on the doorstep, you were not a beautiful girl. You were a cat. A dirty, hairy alley cat. You looked nasty and smelled bad. I asked Mommy if we could keep you. She said no. Daddy coughs and sneezes from animal hair. So we shaved and bathed you. We taught you how to walk on 2 feet and dressed you like a little girl. Mom and Dad said you can stay in our family as long as your fur doesn't grow back. My 4th birthday, the blizzard, the chocolate cake, standard fare. Mom leaving us at home with no supervision, that was a first. Fear overtook me and disappeared once she emerged from her mile-long trudge, soggy Ebbage's box in hand. Questioning whether I'm an natural-born member of my family, that worry started with my brother's taunting and remains with me to this very day, a lost thought that finds its way back to me every year. Thank you.
Mm. Happy birthday, Diane.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going from the age of 4 into junior high with John Horn. Are you muted, John?
Yeah.
Can you hear us? Okay.
Junior high. Why they gave JHS 240 the official name of Andrews Huddy Junior High, I'll never know. Huddy was, I read, a colonial official and big landowner back in New York's Dutch days. Maybe he owned the land the school was built on at 2500 Nostrand Avenue. Maybe not. Like, who really cares, as some of us who passed through the school would have said out Flatbush Way. I qualified for RA, aka SP, Rapid Advance or Special Progress, which meant I'd skip 8th grade and just do 7th and 9th at Huddy before moving on some few blocks down to Midwood High for 3 years more. JHS 240 was situated midway between Midwood and Madison high schools, and my main huddy bud, Maddie, who lived closer to the highway than to the avenue, would go on to Madison when I went to Midwood. A big thing Maddie and I had in common, as well as snarky smarts, was our desire not to vibe like the dorky achievers who did those 3 years in two. By ninth grade, we tried to style ourselves like the tougher and dumber kids who did all 3 years, because being older was being cooler and hipper. Smarts? We were smart enough to successfully cut out of school some days, subwaying into the city to roam around the village or catch a sleazy double feature at one of the flea-put movie houses on 42nd Street between Broadway and 8th Avenue. Maddie was partial to olive drab fatigue pants. I favored black chinos. We had the backs of our shirt collars up, trying for a rocky look, though we studiously avoided truly hard or hoodie kids, so we wouldn't be challenged and revealed as rough, tough cream puffs. Seventh grade, I was in with a group in Maddie's neighborhood. We watched the World Series at David H's house. Both his parents worked, and there was uproarious joy when the Dodgers finally won. Me, I wasn't uproarious. I wasn't into baseball. David H., by the way, didn't make RA/SP, had to do eighth grade and fell out with those who next year were now a year ahead of him. 1955, 1956. Unchained Melody, the movie Picnic, Kim Novak, the paperback of Catcher in the Rye, and my collection of EC comics, put out of business by the strict new comics code. Tales from the Crypt, shock suspense stories, weird fantasy, and mad. James Dean died in a car crash. Johnny Ace played Russian roulette and lost. The 55 Chevy was a classic car. The USA was on top of the world, and NYC was action central. And those 2 years at Huddy are now a blur of misted moments and pop tunes. Had my first date in seventh grade with a quiet, pretty girl whose name I think I remember, but whose face is but a haze. How did I get up the nerve to ask her out, and how did she accept? The details are blowing in the wind, but it was probably a movie date. I remember Dad dutifully picking us up and driving her home, annoyingly coming up with us in the elevator of her apartment house, seeing her right to the door, so no good night kiss. Damn. Maybe that's why I didn't ask her out again. The whole deal was too damn awkward. In the event, that nice girl's family moved at the end of the school year and out of my life. By Labor Day, I was subwaying downtown to the Brooklyn Paramount for the rock and roll show, excited to be surrounded by a lot of Brooklyn kids, pink, brown, whatever, all up for the new music. I was listening to Dr. Jive now every day from 3:05 to 5:03, the down sounds from uptown after school, as well as Alan Freed's rock and roll party in the evening. Funny, the music remains more vivid than many real-life moments of those years. I do remember walking the highway, going to the Avalon or Kingsway to see some feature presentation, or the Kings and the Kenmore on and off the avenue. On the waterfront, Rebel Without a Cause, Blackboard Jungle, Love Me Tender, The Girl Can't Help It. Ninth grade came and went. Summer brought Maddie and me to Brighton Beach, and in particular Brighton Private, a fenced-off area of the beach with cabins, games, a pool. It was exclusive, so we wanted in. They stamped the wrists of entrance so you could go out and come back. We got some kid coming out to press his wrist to our own after we licked our flesh, and if you did it right, the stamp transferred good enough to get you in. Not that there was anything much we wanted to do inside Brighton Private. It was just the challenge of getting in. I can't recall if that was where I met Vavavoonish Harriet and her homely sidekick, whose name I forget, but I associate the place with them. Harriet was stacked way back for 13 or 14 and had an attitude to go with it. Her friend was like the handmaiden to the star, drab and dowdy next to sexy Harriet, whose long hair was constantly tossed back over a soft shoulder as she styled in short shorts and halter top, both almost too well filled. Harriet was a little friendly, a little flirtatious. Her sidekick got me aside and said, "She likes you, but she doesn't want to get involved with you." Thanks. They vanished in summer and smoke. I recollect walking through Maddie's semi-detached home on the way to the finished basement to play some 45s as his liver-spotted grandmother, ensconced in an easy chair, eyed me and asked, "Is he Jewish, Maddie?" At which Maddie spat out, "Jesus Christ, Grandma." The memories come chock-a-block and then recede. Cue Ebb Tide by Roy Hamilton. And all I can add is a lame old Brooklyn-esque disclaimer. You had to be there, folks.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Okay.
Lovely to hear the name Harriet. I just had a granddaughter born 2 weeks ago, whom they named Harriet. So there we go. And now we're going to hear from Joan, Caspi, with Sylvia, Spaghetti, and Spaldines. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Jolly good.
So you can hear me, I assume.
Yes, very well.
So Sylvia, Spaghetti, and Spaldines. Brooklyn was my first teacher. I loved roller skating up and down my street, East 8th Street, Flatbush. My skates were the cheap kind that clipped onto my shoes and tightened with a skate key. I knew every crack in the sidewalk and every pothole in the gutters. I zoomed around the neighborhood, the skate key on a piece of twine bouncing against my chest. I was naturally curious and enjoyed checking out my neighbors' houses and yards, craning my neck to see what I could glimpse through their windows. I think unconsciously I was searching for an alternative to living in my own home. I was especially fascinated by my Italian neighbors' houses. I was drawn to the religious statues in their front yards. Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, dressed in pale blue robes, her arms stretched out as if she was welcoming the whole neighborhood. My questions about Mary, though, disappeared after my first inside visit. There were 2 kitchens in the house. This wasn't about wealth, it was about culture. The true heart of the house was in the basement. That's where the big pot of gravy simmered on the stove all day, filling the air with smells that drifted up the stairs and out onto the street. 3 generations of the Tropiano family gathered around a long wooden table under harsh fluorescent lights. Nona, dressed head to toe in black, stirred the sauce, while Grandpa smoked something mysterious in his pipe and held court at the head of the table like a king. It wasn't fancy. It was loud, crowded, and overheated, but no one questioned why I was there. When the spaghetti was ready, bowls were placed in front of whoever happened to be sitting at the table, and that included me. I could breathe down there. I felt more at home in that basement than I ever did in my own house. After a few months of eating my way through the Tropiano family dinners, I decided to convert to Catholicism. This religion seemed wonderful to me. You were welcomed, fed pasta, and surrounded by family. So I asked my friend Sister Maria, who was 12 and attended Catholic school, how someone converts. She looked at me very seriously and said, "Well, the Jews killed Jesus." That got my attention, and you'll have to confess it to the priest. I was 9 years old, but I knew one thing immediately. I was absolutely not confessing to murder. And the idea of confessing every week, impossible. I had way too many secrets. My parents were what you might call part-time Jews. We celebrated the high holy days and had dinner on Friday nights, but I never went to Hebrew school. It was too expensive to belong to a temple. So my brief but sincere interest in Catholicism came to a quick end. I didn't want to risk going to hell. That whole Son of God thing weighed heavily. One advantage of being Jewish, I discovered, was that hell wasn't really part of the deal, and that just felt much safer. My family lived in a modest 3-bedroom house with a small patch of grass in front and a tiny garden in the back, but my mother treated that garden like it was Versailles. Mom was a magician. Our house was the only one on the block with a stainless steel commercial kitchen because it was cheaper. We had white carpeting in the living room from remnants at a carpet shop and antiques carefully placed everywhere to create the kind of home my mother thought people would envy. Every object in that house represented her determination to change the life she had grown up in. I had a different goal. I planned to upgrade my image in a different way. I was 9 years old and desperately wanted to join the neighborhood gang. The gang was run by Buster, an Italian kid 3 years older than me. His father was a New York City detective. Buster liked to hang a pair of his broken handcuffs from the back of his jeans so nobody messed with him. He ruled East 8th Street like a dictator. He chose the games, picked the teams, and if someone didn't follow the rules, he would lift them 3 feet off the ground. I decided to bring him an offering. Spaldine balls, those reddish pink spongy balls that smelled faintly like vanilla. The perfect ball for stickball, stoop ball, and handball. I had $1 saved from ironing my father's handkerchiefs. 3 balls cost 95 cents. My first serious purchase. I stood on my tiptoes at the counter while the manager rang it up. $1.08, he said. I froze. You said they were 95 cents. With tax, he said, peering over his glasses. He reached for my dollar bill, but I held on. Ask your mother for 8 cents. My mother was nearby, stocking up on toilet paper and laundry detergent like the apocalypse was coming. There was no way I was, asking her. She would never let me buy something beyond my means. So I looked up at the manager, rising to my full height, and said, "What's your best price?" He stared at me for a moment, then pushed the bag across the counter. "Here," he said. "I like your style." That negotiation got me into the East 8th Street gang. They didn't have jackets or a name, but I was the first girl in the block's history to join. A few days later, my mother offered some advice before I ran outside to play stickball. Duck if they hit too hard, she said, and if they try to knock you around, kick 'em. Practical parenting, I thought. My Dodger cap was on backwards. I was snapping juicy fruit gum, extra sticks in my pocket to share. I was ready for anything. Brooklyn taught me that. That's it.
Thank you, thank you. And now to another part of Brooklyn. Melissa Ann Leonard, who I believe arrived as Dr. Leonard. Is that right? Are you muted? I don't think we can hear you. Melissa?
Yes, here I am.
Oh, good. There you are.
Just took me a second to hit it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Melissa Ann Leonard.
So mine is called A Terrible Thing That Was. Brooklyn College in 1990 was a campus in transition. At the poor man's Harvard, glorious, capacious stone buildings from the 1930s were juxtaposed with shabby, budget 1970s architecture. The faculty lounge had floor-to-ceiling windows and ancient aproned women who served afternoon tea as we reclined on long chintz couches. In the basement dining hall, students sat on plastic chairs around Formica tables. Upstairs, the English department's no-nonsense secretaries, Louise and Anne, ruled supreme. Louise had a tattered notice over her desk. Poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Anne had a wardrobe of winter white and cat-eye glasses. They terrified everyone. The teaching staff at so many American colleges had begun to change. Full-time faculty had enormous high-ceilinged individual offices. As tenured professors retired, Some who'd started in the 1940s settled into their brownstones and beach homes and were cost effectively replaced with poverty wage graduate students like me. We crammed into an old dank classroom stuffed with rusty desks and mismatched chairs. Louise and Anne called it the adjunct room, but we sequestered there called it the abject room. Only the most desperate students attended office hours in that sad place. So I was surprised one afternoon to see Leroy Brown, one of my finest first-year writing students, come in. He was the antithesis of the baddest man in the whole damn town in that eponymous 70s song. Late 20s, inquisitive brown eyes, close-cut hair, and an earnest, confident voice. While he had a linebacker's physique, he had a camp counselor's cheerful demeanor and often wore polo shirts embroidered with the Brooklyn Boys and Girls Club logo. Here, he told me, he had started right after high school. Leroy was a full-time administrator working towards his BA. I said, "Hey, Leroy, what's up?" "Hey, Professor Leonard," he said. Then with a grimace, "Something happened last Sunday." "That didn't sound good." "Okay, tell me." I gestured to a chair, but he remained standing. "On Sunday, my wife Cynthia and I were coming out of church, and our little boy Michael's right behind. He walks all by himself. You know little kids, independent. All of a sudden, he's screaming. I thought he fell and turned around and realized his hands stuck in those old big wood church doors. I'm going to pull them open, but his hands covered with blood. Cynthia grabbed him up, screaming, "It's his finger!" I look where she's looking, and his tiny fingers on the ground. That door sliced off his finger. "Oh my God, Leroy," I said, "that's awful." He said it was crazy. Everybody's yelling, "Hold it tight. I'll get ice. I've got a car." Michael's crying. Cynthia's covered in blood. Everything happens fast. We run into the emergency room. I carry Michael. Cynthia's got a baggie with ice in his finger. The desk lady sees the blood. She takes us right in. So we're in this little room, with the curtain. Cynthia's got Michael on the little bed. I'm too nervous to sit. I'm standing there holding the baggie, and I think, thank you, Lord, because I know any minute a doctor's going to come in and say, "We're going to sew Michael's finger back on." A nurse from one of the islands comes in and takes Michael's temperature. She says, "You're brave, little man. The doctor's going to fix you right up." So did they, Leroy? I asked urgently because now I was frantic about little Michael. Did they sew it back on? Well, the doctor comes in. He looks at Michael's finger and says, "I want the surgeon to look at it," and leaves. We wait some more. I said to Cynthia, "What's taking so long? It seems like everything's slowing down. The ice is melting in the baggie and his little fingers floating." I'm not going to lie, I was starting to freak out. But then the surgeon came in and I think, amen. Now it's going to happen. He looks at Michael for just a second. I'm holding out the little baggie, but he doesn't even look. Can you believe that? Leroy paused. He assumed the surgeon's officious stance. "Mrs. Brown, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, but we cannot reattach Michael's finger. But don't worry, it's a clean cut. We'll sew it straight across. You'll hardly notice it. Children are resilient. He'll learn to live without it." I was shocked. What? A surgeon said that? Leroy responded, "Yeah, he did. I couldn't believe it myself." I said, "That can't be. He's 3. It just happened. We came right away. Here's his finger on ice the whole time." Cynthia was hysterical. "Why can't you sew it back on? Can you please try?" But he said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do." And that man was gone. We were in that little curtained room. My wife was crying, and now I was too. Then that little curtain flies open, and the island nurse marches back in. She looks straight at me and says, "Man, you have health insurance." I said, "Of course I do, through my job." She goes out, and right away, the surgeon, who was just standing there saying there's nothing he can do, comes rushing in like the hospital's on fire and says, "We have to get this child into surgery immediately. Where's the finger?" I hand him Michael's finger that he didn't even look at. The nurse starts an IV. Orderlies put Michael on a stretcher, and they're gone. While we're waiting, I finally get what's going on. They thought we didn't have insurance. Michael would have lost his finger because they didn't think we'd get paid. Leroy sat down. He looked exhausted. "That's an awful story, Leroy," I said. "It's shocking. How's Michael?" "He's fine. He'll be able to use his finger just fine." Leroy paused. I waited, and then he continued. "Professor Leonard, I want to write a letter to that hospital to let them know what a terrible thing that is." And so we sat side by side on mismatched chairs at the rusty desk in that sad little room, and Leroy Brown wrote a powerful letter to the hospital's board of directors in which he told them exactly how terrible a thing that was. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I hope they gave them the finger. Anyhow, lovely. Now, Ibrahim, are you still there? Ibrahim? There was an Ibrahim with us, and it is as though he vanished. Do we not have an Ibrahim anymore? No. No. Oh. Well, then, it's time to go to number 10. I don't know what we're going to do about number 9, but number 10 is Elizabeth Levine, and we hopefully are going to hear from her.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sir Hirsch, thank you for facilitating. And there are so many common themes in amongst us all. It must be a Brooklyn thing. So this is called The Land of Secrets. It was originally 12 pages, and making it 1,000 words was harder than writing the original 12 pages. Land of Secrets. This big, beautiful borough of Brooklyn was my home. My relatives visited from all over, converging like an intersection at my grandmother's house in Midwood on East 21st Street between I and J, as if it were the equator from which we never strayed, north or south, but rested in a state of permanent equilibrium, where safety could always be found. History. I attended nursery school at East Midwood Hebrew Day School. This enclave sheltered me, keeping me immune to the undertow outside school. Religion floated throughout the day like awe. I sang foreign and sorrowful prayers that evoked lament. These forlorn, familiar rhythms became my lullaby. I studied English in the mornings and spoke Hebrew in the afternoons, when time seemed more sacred. Hebrew letters seduced me with their intricate shapes and mysterious markings. I loved the magic of hidden vowels, the trick of reading from right to left, the intricacy of this backwards alphabet. Intuitively, I recognized that I was not like my other, more religious classmates. In first grade, I discovered that Jews were different from Christians. I learned how religion divides us from ourselves, from the familiar, suddenly rendered profane. Doubts about being Jewish swirled around me as fierce as fire ants. I feared Jews would evaporate or fold, tumbling out of the Brooklyn sky like falling stars. My sense of unease and anxiety about God, religion, safety, identity, and belonging grew. I brought my fears home. They lingered throughout dinner. I procrastinated about telling my parents what happened at recess, knowing my father would get upset. Haltingly, I finally asked, "Why are all Christians bad?" I needed their reassurance, an answer to know why. Silence settled across the table like an uninvited guest. Normally, everyone in my family talked at the same time during meals, and no one really listened to each other. My father stopped eating. Everybody listened. The listening is when and how I knew that my question was as disturbing to them as it was to me. My father looked straight at me. He didn't answer right away. He cleared his throat, something he rarely did. Another bad omen. "Where did you hear this, Eliza?" "At school." That was what I had learned earlier that day. "Who told you that?" "The boys on the playground." My father's features grew angry, an acute angle. I lacked the word for complicity, yet even in first grade, I understood how dirty it felt. "I will talk to the rabbi tomorrow," he said, closing the subject. The following evening, my mom ordered pizza for dinner, leaving my grandmother to babysit. My mother came home looking weary. My father went directly into his office. It was an hour later than usual. The fact that we were eating late struck me as ominous. "You are not going back to East Midwood next year," my father announced. "Why?" "When you are older, you will understand. You will probably even thank me for it." "But I can finish first grade?" "Yes, we don't want to pill you out in the middle of the year," my mother said in a strange tone that I didn't recognize. "So be it," my grandmother said, shaking her head in disgust. I wasn't sure exactly what disgusted her, the fact that I wanted to finish East Midwood or the fact that I was transferring to PS 152. Other families from East Midwood stopped speaking to my parents, not even bothering to ask why we were leaving, just demanding, "How could you leave?" My parents didn't respond. Suddenly, being Jewish became tricky and treacherous. Kids I had known since nursery school suddenly wouldn't play with me anymore. God disappeared that year I transferred to public school. I no longer prayed, read Torah, or spoke Hebrew. I discovered blondes, blacks, and Puerto Ricans in my new school. I read these friends like Braille, mesmerized by their mystery. And then I met Casey in second grade. "How's life as a new kid? How do you like it here so far?" Casey asked, chomping on her peanut butter and jelly sandwich. "I went to a religious school. I like it here more." Casey provided me with a new place to belong. We picked up our trays and emptied them into vast metal garbage cans that lined the exit of the gritty cafeteria. It wasn't as clean or quiet as my old school, where we formed neat, patient, obedient lines. Here at public school, lunch was a free-for-all. Deafening noise echoing throughout the cavernous room, chocolate milk splattering as we rushed to class. "So what's up, pussycat? Where do you live?" she asked. "I live in an apartment building on Ocean Avenue. My neighbors are all old and speak these funky, weird languages," Casey told me. Enormous in her personality, gestures, and size, Casey wore a pink and gold colored summer poncho, revealing the two white straps of her training bra. Her bell bottoms rode up her backside, her purple underpants forming a wedgie. But nothing bothered her. Not her underpants, not her weight, not her puberty, not her excess, not a thing. Adjectives failed to truly describe her exuberant personality, which was defined by bold nouns, active verbs, and a blatant disregard for punctuation. She reminded me of sunshine. She burned that bright and hot, and that hot. I reminded myself of dusk, that vaguer period between extremes, not day or night, but crepuscular. I needed her. Casey had all the answers, and all I had were questions. I was about to enter the underbelly of Brooklyn, 1973, when Mayor Beam announced that New York City was bankrupt. Childhood would abruptly end. That was the year I inherited secrets from adults. I carried them with me, like a nomad across the desert, balancing this vessel of water on my head, careful not to spill a drop. Casey said, "Follow me." And I did, willingly, naive about the lessons I was about to learn and how the trauma of these secrets would haunt me through the years.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. First of all, thank you, everybody. And secondly, is there an Ibrahim in the house anywhere? Because then we have come to the end of this extraordinary Brooklyn experiment. I want to thank all of you for entertaining me. I also think we should all thank Aziz Rahman for putting this magical show together. Thank you. And all I can say is these were such wonderful adventures and trips into different parts of Brooklyn. I am just delighted and thrilled that I am not involved in judging, because as far as I'm concerned, you all deserve to be a winner. You all are winners. But whoever it is up there that sends messages down here has told me that there are two runners up. Linda Scotto, congratulations. And John McMahon, congratulations, who is being represented on Earth by Aziz over there. And the winner of the 2025 Brooklyn Nonfiction Prize is Elizabeth Levine for her essay entitled Land of Secrets.
Good God.
As Her Majesty would have wanted me to say, Mazel Tov.
I just want to say to everyone else, I was a runner-up last year, and I tried again. And everyone's writing was so beautiful. I really encourage you to not give up and apply again for a second year. And I thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you all, everybody. And somewhere up in the heavens, Aziz is hopefully smiling down, and it is probably time for us to kiss each other goodnight. Is that true?
Adieu. A bientôt.
A bientôt. Oui, oui, oui.
Thank you very much. This was great fun, and I loved everybody's pieces. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Dr. Leonard, I was an adjunct professor in the basement, so I know those verbs. Indentured servitude is what I like to call it.
Absolutely. You're 100%. Yes.
And as a proxy here, all I can say is you guys all have great pieces. It was a privilege for me to listen to everyone recite their words. It was very cool. And Robin, you did a kick-ass job, dude. Nice work.
John, I would have gone to Huddy and then Midwood, so we would have overlapped. But my parents exiled me to New Jersey, and I've never forgiven them.
Well.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. I hope to see you all next year. Come back.
Right. Every 20 minutes. Okay.
Au revoir.
Toodaloo. Toodaloo.
Enjoy your evening.